It's my. I'll give it to you. This is, yeah, like, this is super cool.
Kirk, the doc, is, I think, in love with her.
No, she's amazing. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, yeah. I'll still be stoked either way after even that. I'll just be more connected to Michael at this point. Yeah, ready?
Yeah. Good. Welcome to the Men's Journal Everyday Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sarraille, and we've got Andrew Alexander King. That is a regal name, dude. That is a very, your parents couldn't have come up with a stronger name.
You know, it's actually, the story goes, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy to be here in amazing Texas, awesome Texas with you guys. So, yeah, my grandmother and my mom actually, debated over my first name being Alexander, my middle name being Andrew. And I think when my mom left the hospital, she just put on the birth certificate, Andrew, and my grandmother found out later on, she's like, oh, it's not Alexander. She's like, no, I liked Andrew Alexander. I didn't go by it until I was probably, own it until I was probably in my late 20s. And then, because it was I'm 5'4", so I didn't want anyone to be like, oh, they see this name, and, this guy walks in, he's, really tiny. But Napoleon syndrome helped me out there.
Well, this is a podcast within a podcast that we just had off the record. Probably should have recorded that entire thing. I'm sure we'll get to it. For those guys that don't know Andrew Alexander King, he is really sort of one of the first African-American climbers, big wave surfers. That's a very odd combo. I'm trying to think if I knew anyone that flirted between those two sports.
Let me try to think. There's others, not many, because they're so high consequential and they take a lot out of you mentally and physically, because you're always either chasing systems around the world further surfing, and then also alpinism and mountaineering and climbing do take a lot more incremental consistency over time. So you kind of, and also most climbers don't want to get their hands soft from surfing. So yeah.
Diva. Don't want to get my hands off. You are operating in the two environments I love.
Yeah.
One, I was born and raised in California, but married an Austin girl. I'm stuck here. So I tried taking her to Idaho. Yeah. Because Coeur d'Alene, at least we'd have water and mountains. And she was not having it. My brother's in Whitefish, Montana. And she's like, yeah, I'm not living in Canada. So I'm like, hey,
I like her.
Texas just doesn't have mountains.
Yeah.
And regardless of what any Texan says, go to Galveston and Corpus and tell me if that's there's no way. You got to wait for the next hurricane to come in.
No, there's none. I appreciate I actually was going to go to the wave pool out here on my way up to visit my mom. And actually, my first wave pool I ever surfed here was, I believe, down in Waco. I think the first one I ever surfed, my first big wave pool. And so you guys had the first one I ever touched. But no, I was first surfing in Texas. No, I'm okay.
Yeah. Austin reminds me of California in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I do like that. But it's not the same.
It's not. I think living in California, I've only been living there for 6 years. And I made that leap after living in New England for 12, because my great-grandparents and my grandparents were living on the West Coast, all on a farm together. And I basically, after college, grad school, and I wanted to take care of my grandmother and my great-grandmother before she passed away. So I really made that decision to change. Never thought in a million years I would live in LA, because I was like, I just don't see the point there. It doesn't really vibe with me. But I really did not want to be in the cold again and not near the ocean. And so I got really lucky to be like, okay, I can surf and climb in the same day. So I actually get to do that very often. I'll go surf with my friends and, Santa Monica or Malibu, and I'll go straight up to the mountains and do maybe some from zero elevation to up to 10,000 feet in the same day, and come home and hang out or go to a speakeasy and chill out with my friends.
Yeah.
So it works for me.
Well, we were talking earlier, California is one of the most beautiful states. I lived in the San Diego area, but I think one of just the best areas mid-California, the Santa Barbara, Slow, San Luis Obispo area is just, gorgeous, man.
I didn't know that until I went to go visit my friend who has, Chris Burkhardt, who was there. And I went to go visit him recently. I love you, Berkey, by the way. So I went to go visit him recently and at his studio. And it was one of the most beautiful drives I had to take up there. And it wasn't all the way along the PCH. I was like, I can drive up the PCH. Yep. When going inland, I was like, I get why he lives up here now. And it's also, the surf is better, the community. It was just very cool to me. So, yeah.
Because I think UC Santa Barbara was always number one in surfing.
Of course. I went free diving out there once. And I was like, I was like, again, I'm so happy I did not learn about these schools in college because I probably
You would have been,
I
yeah,
would've been out. I would have been out of
all
college.
in on surfing and nothing
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Well, dude, that's a good sort of point to break into. So you were born and raised in Detroit, which is, I'd say, far from a
Far from a mountain.
mountaineering. It's an urban landscape.
Yeah, it is. It
So
is.
you give us a sense of what it was like growing up and what led you down this this path.
Growing up in Detroit was very, looking back on it now, one of the best places to set my mindset of where my life is now. I think, and I always say 770 Asbury Park, where people discuss like projects, where we went to school, and then everything behind that was either, we had burned down houses or really like, violent places we were around. And again, to my knowledge, I had my mom, single parent of 4, and my grandparents and my uncles just gave me an environment where I honestly thought it was the coolest place on earth. I got Christmas, I got telescopes, I got Street Fighter toys, Lego bricks. I had my brother, and we just ran up and down the block. And to me, I was like, this is cool. And so besides all the violence I was going on, I just had a good support system that kept my head on straight. So I didn't really have to really dive into it. And unfortunately, it is a very turbulent place to grow up, and it still is like that. I went back after years not being there, and the house I used to live in is now a drug house. And it was kind of hard because the people across the street were so concerned. I was like, just recording it and just shooting like, hey, this is where I grew up. And it was so bad, my uncle didn't even want to let me go there alone. And so it's kind of crazy that in my mind as a child, I didn't know any of this, and it's still the same. And I guess like the saying is, the more things change, they stay the same. So, violence to me was something that I was in, chaos I was in, losing my friend, and by 5th grade, lost other people that I grew up with by gang-related activity. But my goal...
In the 5th grade.
Yeah, 5th grade. It was just probably one of my, and I still think about this now, and I talk to my family about it, and it's something that, going to therapy and talking about, it's able to help me love people a lot more for where they are and who they are. Like, I'm happy to be here with you and your team, because you never really know when you're going to see someone again. And she was just an instant bystander in a drive-by shooting. They thought they were shooting up the car because someone else was in it, and it just happened to be her and her family. And so you go to school the next day, and that person's not there. And then as time goes on, it doesn't really resonate with you as a kid too much, because you're like, what happened? And then other people in my life were the same. Other people went to jail. So I kind of, over time, I left school, and I had a great family that just kept my head on straight. And I used to take apart a lot of electronics and stuff. And so I just made a plan with my family that let's just I want to go to college. And no one in our family did that. It was something that was so far out in reach. And my grandparents, being in the military, really gave us that ability to see the world and give us that opportunity to believe and reach for more. And so went to go live with them when my mom and her family agreed upon it, and we did it. I got to college, and they broke the family tree, and then my little brother went on and became, didn't go to college, became one of the best network security engineers in the Air Force. And then my older brother is an amazing engineer in the Air Force, came from building planes together and Lego bricks around the house, and now he works on planes all around the world, and he loves it. And so I would say growing up in Detroit gave us a place of mental grit and toughness to really focus on what we wanted to be, what family meant, and how to really take life as it came to you and not take it for granted, because you had to do that. So good place to start my lottery ticket of life, I tell people.
Yeah.
And it's probably why when people ask, is climbing a mountain hard or surfing a big wave hard, I'm like, nah, I kind of grew up outrunning, getting beat up or shot, so it's kind of straightforward to me. Just listen to people, you survive, and, do the right thing.
That is one I'm not thrilled to hear that any kid has to grow up in that environment. Not that that's foreign to me, having seen what goes on in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I mean, the fact that happens in the United States is just completely 100% unacceptable. And I don't know about you, Will, it makes me feel sheltered, that I didn't really see the real world until I joined the military and went to combat.
Going off of that point, I think, I would say, I tell people this when they ask, first time I ever saw a weapon, it's probably no more than 9 or 10. And I was my friend and I getting bullied, and this kid just pulls out this silver gun. And I'm I've only seen these things from a distance, never this close. And I really thought I was so scared. I was so scared. I just ended up walking home. I just like put my head down and walk. And like, it's a kid like in middle school just bullying us. And I'm like,
process that as a 9-year-old.
And then you got to go back the next day, and like our school had metal detectors. We had I think for me, and I think about this, we had metal detectors until I got to my grandparents. Like, yeah, and I was like, when I went to school, I was like, oh, we don't have metal detectors at the school. And it was just like, oh, this is craziness. And so that, I think by that point, when I got into like track and field, like more real, like, you know, not just running to run, like for life, like you're running to like, I tell people I just use that gunshot, what I used to be afraid of and running from, that was my fuel when I got into track and field meets. I was like, if I can use this noise and that same feeling and put it together, I pretty much can go ahead and win most races. And that's what it was. I was like, I'm not going to let this fear own me anymore. And I just used it at every race from then on out.
Using a bad situation for the good, but the statement in itself is not that's again, nobody should have to utilize a gunshot to remember back in their childhood.
No, I think every kid shouldn't. I think in my opinion, I think you shouldn't have to do that. And I think that's why it's a big thing for me, for kids to not be in that situation. Like, the biggest part of it was making sure my niece and nephews don't have to deal with that. Like my niece, you know, watching her go to the beach at my age and see me surf, and she made fun of me saying like, at least you could have done better. You know, that's cooler than her having to deal with that, you know. Yeah. Having those kids have, you know, working for them to have college, like, you know, foundation or degree, like, you know, monetary saved so they have to do that. That is what it was. And I think for me, like, it shouldn't be a kid has to like grow up so fast. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to feel like you're 8 years old. Like, the world should be your oyster. You should be able to move through it. Versus, like, at that age, I'm already thinking, like, okay, I got to go to school, come home, help my brother with this, make sure we survive. Like, it made you kind of mature so well. By the time I got to, like, at peace with it, meditation, I was just like, I'm here. I've made it through that.
Yes.
So
your mom was a single mom of 4.
Yeah, Tabitha's amazing. I love Tabitha. Love you, Mom.
I call that warrior.
Yeah, she's a warrior. She's actually a warrior. You like her.
Was she constantly sacrificing her desires for you 4?
Yeah, you know, she gave us everything that we needed. You know, I got to play Super Mario. I learned that I loved coding and building games when I played Zelda. Like a kid that grew up with nothing.
Dude, you're dating yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so, but it's great. I'm good to go. New Zelda's great, by the way. She gave us all those things. Like, I think she worked 3 jobs. I remember going to, in the morning, my brother, before my sister was still young, before my younger brother was born, would do newspaper routes with her early in the morning so she could spend more time with us. And then she would go work another job in an office. And then she would have, you know, work at Target as well, just to make sure she has discounts to give us Christmases gifts. And this was the craziest thing. As a kid, you're wondering, like, how does this all come together? And it's because this one person is giving everything they got to make sure that you get everything that they wish they had. And it was like my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my grandfather, they all helped contribute to that. So, like, me sitting here in front of you to speak about these things and, like, honesty and truth with, like, no heavy heart, it's because of them. And, like, for me to, like, step in the best version, it's because of them. And so I was very lucky to have that. A lot of my friends probably didn't, and I think it you know, I don't want anyone to go through that, but Tabitha was the person that birthed me, you know, still is one of my best friends. We just went to Paris together, and I remember sitting here on her birthday for Paris trip, she's like sitting here across from this cafe from the Moulin Rouge, and she's like, I can't believe we're doing this. I was like, I promised you we would get here when I left. And I don't know, my podcast, and she was just like telling me how it was. She's like, I knew letting you go was going to have some benefits. So she's a warrior, and she's an amazing person. So you would like her, though. She makes me laugh. And just called me before here. She's like, where are you? I was like, on my way to the interview right now. She's like, cool, I'm going to see you tonight. I'm like, yes, I love you. She's like, okay. Have fun. Okay, I love you too. Bye. So,
when did it really hit? Because, again, there's a lot of things you can't comprehend as a kid. But when did it really hit you that Tabitha, holy shit, she really gave everything for us?
Oh, I would say probably when I came out of my, I would call it ignorance, you know, lame phase after college. You're like, oh, I'm doing everything. It's just me. I know the whole world. I'm like, no, dude, you don't know. You need to sit down with someone and like digest all of this.
We call that Mount Stupid.
That
was the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I was there. I climbed the mountain a few times, danced on it, hanged out. I would say in the 20s for sure, because going to therapy, sitting down with meditation, 9 into that, you look back on it and be like, you didn't get here by yourself. And it's very ignorant, and I think, to say that, like, you got here by yourself and such. And it's because of that woman. That woman played a big part in that. And I think, I don't know who my dad is, and I'm okay with that, because I've learned to let things go. And I've also learned from that, the people that love you will surround themselves and be consistent with you. And we talked about this before the podcast, is the world is loud, the arena is loud. After every hit that get knocked down in every round, I walk back to that corner, like, lick my wounds. My mom is always in that corner. My grandmother's in that corner. My friends, my family are in that corner. And I got up every round because of them. So to me, that's who I listen to. So it took me after like years of like, sitting down and looking at myself and reflecting, be like, and taking care of those people, that she was a big proponent. And that's why I love her.
For the listeners, we were talking before we started about, I'm sorry, who won the Celtics?
We were talking about Tatum.
So how people can just, a lot of journalists and the fans are fair weather, and how easy it is to make a asinine, just negative comment about somebody. And what we were saying is, you go back to the man in the arena, the famous Teddy Roosevelt speech, which was actually the citizen in the Republic, which has now become known as the man in the arena. But, what we were saying is just, if you're not in there, or you haven't been in there before, just shut your mouth. Even if you've been in there before, shut your mouth. Circumstances are different.
Yeah, it is. Like, you go through it a lot, and I think it's, being a single parent is hard. Being a single parent for kids is very hard. And having that ability to see what that is like, that's really difficult. And it goes back to every philosophy, from big wave surfing to alpinism and climbing and training. Social media can get people to hide and be like, I know you so well based upon this. I always say this box fragmentation of you, to see who you are.
I want you to see.
Yeah, well, I want you to see. And when I write things down of like, what I'm feeling and stuff, I'm like, I'm going to be as transparent as I can with you. I'm going to let you see that. But you don't know what someone went through to be in front of you. Like, they actually could have just almost got hit by a car this morning. They could have, like, especially what's going on here with violence and stuff. And, like, they could have gone through so much to be there. So, like, just appreciate that they're opening up and, like, having a conversation with you versus being closed off. And I think it just gave me a lot more appreciation when I found out, coming off Mount Stupid, how many people contributed to me to be here in this happiness of it and speak about things that are hard to speak about, but also should be spoken about within context and in the right platforms to use it.
I love how you talk about the consistency of who surrounds you, and as a true determination of who's really important in your life.
Yeah.
Especially in an age where it's like, well, how many followers do you have?
Yeah.
I could give a shit less.
Yeah.
Like, I know who I can call at 3 a.m. in the morning. I know who's on Signal.
Yes.
Who will reply immediately, and that's
it.
Yeah. And
I think that is where sometimes people, like, if someone says to me, like, oh, you have so many followers, I'm like, it's about the quality of people you have, not the quantity. And I would say this, I'm like, everything it's like as you're drinking something, like, I want that substance to be something that's replenishing the soul, elevating the soul. And you're only going to be elevated by the people that are going to be open, honest. Like, if you have, like, again, you can see someone with 10 million followers, but, like, who are the 10 people they can count on out of that 10 million followers to, like, be there when they fall down? People are usually, again, the audience is watching you, but who is in that corner with you every time you have to get back up and step into something? That's the people that are, if social media went away, if you had to, back to handwriting, those are the people that are going to respond to you, and those are the people you're going to want. So,
amen. And I'm not, I'm not opposed to having a large number of followers, that you can impact lives even through e-communication or social media.
Right.
I call it mentorship through readership.
Yeah.
There's a lot of authors who I've never met. And actually, this job, I'm starting to get to meet a lot of them.
Yeah, this is super cool. It's super cool.
But, I mean, Teddy Roosevelt. You read about Teddy Roosevelt. I've never met Teddy Roosevelt. That was impossible. But, I mean, I consider him a mentor. And there are some people that put out good stuff on social media. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of nonsense. There is a credibility issue with some. So out of Detroit, you're recruited by the University of Maine for track and field.
Track and field. Yeah, my grandparents and I, yeah.
And so you go into the University of Maine and you're competing. I mean, you're an athlete, which is pretty much a full-time job.
Yes.
On top of having to maintain your grades.
Oh, yep.
Were you working as well? Or?
Yep, student aid.
Student aid.
Student aid, working in the library. No, I didn't do the library. I worked at the Native American Studies lab there. So I got to learn about that a lot. What else? That was a little bit something else, finance too. But yeah, I did my student aid. I enjoyed it. It was fun. But yeah, you're a full-time athlete. 13 years of competing from 8 years old until I was 21. That was it. And like it's funny. I love you, Warren, but I'm going to go into the story. If my grandparents wanted to ground with me, they were never one to physically do anything. But they knew that if I didn't perform grades-wise or do my chores, my track shoes would be going missing. And so basically they're like, you're not going to be able to compete if you don't do the disciplinary things that lead up to why you should compete. And what they were teaching me along those roads of those 13 years is take care of the things that are going to be so you don't have to worry about them when you get into the blocks. Do the work now so you don't have to come back and redo the work. And so coming from a military family where, my grandfather was like an ex-master sergeant, it's like so yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was so key because he taught me discipline, which I still use today. And he was setting that foundation. And I love him so much because he stepped in to be something that someone didn't want to be. And he did it so well and unconditional loving with my grandmother that they created this opportunity for me to go to college, run track, be the D1 athlete I promised I would be, graduate, brave the family tree, and do it. And they were just so great about it. And I remember when I broke, I always thought, I was like, I'm not going to be able to break like a 10-9. And I remember at the time I broke that, and I was like, this is possible because you did all the things of discipline that you needed to do to get to that moment. So, yeah.
You say 10-9, I can't even fathom that. So, I mean, I've watched it, but yeah.
It's hard, man, because that is incremental seconds. Like I would hover around it and in school, I would hover around the low 11s, hover. And the only thing I was like, when you go from a 10, let's just put it in perspective, a 10-9 to a 10-6 is probably more, that is years of training. That is years of just training in the blocks. That is years of strength work. That is years of clapping, the gun going off, boom, 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 how to break it down. That is knowing each step and breaking down tape of years to do it. So for someone to be in the 9 range, that is not just gifted ability, that's discipline. So when you see an Olympic sprinter do that, break down the footage and you can see all their muscles contortion going through it. It was a lot. And I would say shout out to Dave Cassano, one of the hardest coaches I ever had. He called me Nails in college because I would be surfing and climbing, and then coming after that was done in the summer, I'd come back and he'd be like, you're just getting destroyed, but you're always putting it. There's vomiting, there's destroy. He would put me through the ringer to make sure that I was at my best performance. And he, just like my grandfather, seeing something in me, would not let it go to waste. And to this day, just before coming here, put in time on the wall. Wake up at 6, stretch, meditate, go put your time in, so I can come here and be like, I don't have to stress out. I'm here in front of Mike, and I can sit here because I've already done the work. I've already taken care of the work emails. I've already done all that. So I can be here and be honest and true. So, yeah.
You used to use two words, discipline and consistency, which actually they're sort of becoming the same freaking thing. Yeah. People ask, hey, what's the definition of discipline? It's to do the things consistently that no one else will do to achieve excellence.
Exactly.
Bottom line. Nobody wants to get up at 4. Nobody wants to get up at 4:30 or 5. But nobody wants to eat whole foods all the time. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. If you have to, I want to eat this pizza, but I'm going to eat these eggs and this salmon instead. I mean, there's a difference.
There is a difference. And I think when people, what does one of my friends say once? Everyone wants the dream, but no one wants to wake up and go get it. You know what I mean? It's I think at the end of the day, it's you got to put in the work for that. And it's not going to be quick and fast. And I would say, even working on the project now with the Between Worlds project, that is 13 years of work. That is me having a full-time job, still training before anyone knew who I was, which in the past 3 years now people know. I was doing it because that is everything I had to do. Working multiple jobs on top of my job while training, while working, while helping out nonprofits, while helping out people. Like, you put that work in, and you may see your garden grow, or you may see that tree you nurture grow, but if it's all about, like, I need that fruit now, you'll never feel fulfilled. You'll always feel like you're behind. And I think for me, it's like my grandparents, my mom, and my coaches really just instilled that into me. So I got to really do that and then take on the other part of it and do what I do now.
Yeah, I think there is a major problem with instant gratification versus delayed gratification. Is everyone wants the
So true.
like for a lot of people it's, I want to be famous. Okay, well then you've got to beat your craft day and day for 10, 15, 20 years before you achieve any success. Yeah. It's the same thing, even before, like when we went on Rogan, people are like, "Oh, you're gonna blow up after Rogan." I'm like, I've learned now that like, no, it's like compounding interest. It's going to be a small leap.
Yes.
But nothing is like, oh, this is going to be it.
I feel like you feel me. I feel like I feel seen on this. I think I feel this right now.
But I'm so, like, it just sounds like you had parents and uncles and grandparents that, well, one, I mean, having a grandfather that was in the Air Force, understanding that, like, nobody has that before they go into the military. I was so unfocused when I joined the Marine Corps. Yeah. And it was like, they snapped me too.
Yeah, that would do it.
But they were hard. It was hard. It was tough love.
Yes.
And it sounds like, it feels like we're getting away from that in a sense that, here's my perspective. Sure. I'd love your opinion. Sure. The reason good parents are hard, or mentors or coaches are hard on their athletes, their children, their students, their direct supports, if they truly love them, the highest form of compassion is accountability.
100%. Yeah.
And you do that with the intent of never wanting to yell. And one, accountability doesn't mean you have to yell at anyone. You can do professionalism tack. But if you look at a parent holds you accountable because they want to turn you into a good contributing member of society who can, more importantly, stand on their own 2 feet. Yes. Because I'm not going to be there. Yes. So I need to know that I've instilled grit and mental toughness and resiliency, accountability, self-accountability, and self-responsibility. More so, not only to stand on your 2 feet, but also develop your critical thinking so that you are going to make mistakes. Yes. I know you're going to make mistakes, that you can learn from it and move on.
Yes, I would say that is it. I think, in my opinion, that's what it boils down to. Any mentor or a parent, that's someone that loves you, is going to do that. And I think, to your point, watch Coach K's film. I think if people go watch Coach K from basketball, for everyone that's contact, like, go watch Coach K, go watch Bill Belichick, go watch, let's say, who's another great coach?
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson. Yeah. Go watch. The coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks, women's coach as well. Pat Summit. Yes. Go watch these coaches, and as you watch these coaches, you will see them take the players that you've all been like, wow, where'd they go to school? All the players we all see in social media today, that tree of hierarchy, they were relentless about that.
An unbroken chain of excellence is what I call it.
Yeah.
I had a great leader who actually studied. He was a mentee of a guy named General Stanley McChrystal. Yeah. Famous within the military realm. Led JSOC, just turned JSOC into another organization. He wrote a book called Team of Teams. But like, you look at the list of leaders that he's produced, and then those leaders have gone on to produce. Yeah. I'm not one of them.
I disagree, but okay.
Well, even though I studied under one of his mentors, who was great, I just, like, some things are lost, too many hits to the head. But it's, people ask, how did you lead in the military? Simple. Yeah. And you talk about those coaches. Yeah. I led through love. Yes. You look at Coach K, you look at Phil Jackson, they loved their teams. Their teams. Their players.
Yeah. You could see it. You could see it in everyone you just see now in today's world, and how that contributed to, like, Kobe, to Tatum, to all of those players now became good leaders over the time. And that's why it's out of a place of love and compassion, but you have to be open and receptive to that, and you have to be able to understand what that is.
And sometimes you need to give not physical hit, but a proverbial smack to the head to wake people up to say, hey, this is why it's important.
Yes, because they might run on autopilot and forget that, and can be like, not take that well. And I think that's what it comes down to. Be like, what are you doing? And I've had good coaches now in climbing be like, what are you doing, Andrew? Like, why are you doing that? And I'll just give you a prime example right now, one that's realistic. So, I just came back from my 3rd season in Portugal. It was my first big wave season. It took me 3 years to get the green light from the Portuguese team.
Will, can you throw up big wave surfing in Portugal? You've got to see this. It's stupid. I equate these guys to the guys who get back or on the back of a 1,500-pound bull.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. I got a baby bull this season. So it was my I got a little calf maybe this little season.
What do you call that? What's the sport where the kids get on the back of the sheep? Mutton? Mutton busting?
That was basically me this season. I got to do that. And so let's go and see what we got here. Let's check out. Go down to the
100-foot. Nazar.
Yeah, let's go to the Nazar. Let's go with let's go up to that one. Yeah, right here. Let's check that one out. That's Garrett, so you'll get some good content from that. And that's from Peak 1. That's Peak 1.
What is the highest wave you've done so far?
I just did 25.
Still,
That's
people can't understand that.
Yeah, so that was a baby compared to everyone else.
People die on 25s.
Yeah, they do. They really do. So that is Peak 1 you're looking at right there. And this is the legend, Garrett himself.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, Garrett, by the way.
Really never know what you're gonna get. It's so bizarre.
See if you can go to one where they show the wave.
Right there.
Are you stair stepping up?
Yeah, so we're basically towed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then right here, that's Peak 1 he's on. And you're just riding this thing down. And you have to be very technical about this because that is a lot of water coming at you, for one. And second, it will hold you down and it's no timeout in that at all.
So hence why you train at the bottom of the pool holding the weights to run out of the surf zone.
And so right here for Garrett, that's Peak 1 again. That's probably that looks like a 50-plus day out there. Actually, no, that looks even bigger than that.
Perfect.
And yeah, so basically when it comes down to surfing like that, I got to go out there for 3 years. So I trained for 3 years. First year, Joao Macedo was like, hey, if you want to come do this, you need to go through our training regime. And which is I had to go to his, training facility in Lisbon with his team. They put me in the pool, and those pool workouts are hard. Like you would enjoy those. They tend to make you just
like
vomit.
Shallow water blackout, just right on the fringe.
You're right there sometimes. Depends, because we have to do, sometimes we swim 1,000 meters or more sometimes, and then we have to do pool, hold the weight underwater, walk underwater, one breath. That's it, down and back. Sometimes you're holding, 20 to 30 pound weight. You have to do that. And again, it's made to push you. I get more exhausted doing those workouts than towing in at Nazareth. And the point of it, with JoJo and his team, of the Big Wave Crushers there, is to really make you feel what it's going to be like on a really heavy hold down. So I had to do that for year 1. Year 2, I got to get taken out on a step up where I got to just jump off the back of the jet ski without getting towed. That was crazy, and that was on a smaller day. And year 3, I got the green light to actually go out because, the locals let me, Angie, you put in the work to be here. And I just had to study it. This season, taking off on my biggest wave was 25 feet. That thing was cracking behind me. It was scary. But my coach, Daniel, was so relentless about that tough love. Not going to lie to you, he was just I need you to be this, I need you to be this, I need you to be this. And I'm whoa, this is going back to this is intense training. Because he's a jet ski driver. He has to pick me up after every wipeout. So if I make something wrong, I'm putting his life at risk. And how it is, what's it called? The arm? Mm-hmm. You get picked up on on the ski-doo. You have to know how to do it. That came into perfect way because when you get picked up, you basically have to have that. You go for the elbow. You don't go for the wrist.
Because you can tear ligaments and everything. And
so him and I were just like this. I was as soon as I see his hand in the water, I'm I know what that means. Elbow, board, go, sled. Because you don't have a lot of time before that wave breaks. If it wasn't for Daniel and I had from, I probably wouldn't have progressed so fast. But he was relentless as pushing me every day in that water to be as good as I had to be. And it really, when I clicked, again, mind, body, heart, and soul was in it. I went on that day, back-to-back 20-foot wave, back-to-back, and I didn't even blink about it. But if you go back to when we first met, I couldn't even get out there. My arms were destroyed.
Do you have it on video?
Yeah.
You've got to send me the video. Yeah. We'll throw that in the article. That's a must.
Yeah, because it's actually I put it on my Instagram because I was this is the biggest wave I've ever surfed because It was crazy because I saw someone I grew up idolizing, Andrew Cotton. Andrew Cotton is a big wave legend from England. He's such a sweet guy. And he was out there that day, and I'm like getting towed into like my warm up wave, and I see Andy, and I'm like, "There's Andy," and I'm like, "Oh God, oh God," and I'm like, "Hey Andy," he's like, "Good morning, brother." Just calls me in on this wave. I just take off on it, warm up, and then I got my 2 good waves. Took one of my worst wipeouts ever on the head, but like I didn't have to pull my vest because all the training led me up for it. All the stuff with Daniel being tough on me, knowing how not to panic, JoJo and his team being like Andrew, know how to breathe everything out and take it. When I wiped out, I saw this wave about to break on my head, which it was, and I was like, get all the air out, get ready to go for a ride. He'll be there to pick you up. Be ready when he gets there. That's it. Picks me up. He goes, did you pull? And I go, no, sir. Let's roll it again. He's like, how you feel? It's like, let's get back into it. So all of that stuff about being hard on you, Daniel had a good relationship because, like, he really took someone that he built into be like, this is my passion I love. And he worked with me the entire season. So I miss being out there so much, and I'm looking so forward to like December already. But like, if he wasn't like that, those days would not have come so quickly, and that gratitude wouldn't be there. So back to your point about that tough love and like kicking people in the head, like that was Daniel every time I went on that jet ski. Every time I stepped up and like I put that tow board in there, and we got around the corner of the lighthouse and we saw the waves, you're locked in. So
You know what the first test was?
What?
When he asked you. It's like, if you want to do this, you've got to commit to the 3-year program.
Yeah, that was it.
Like 9 out of 10 people will be like, no, 3 years. That's I'm going to go
Yeah.
find somebody who can do it in 1.
Exactly.
It's that, are you willing to put the work in? Everyone, we just dealt with this.
Yeah.
So on these expeditions
Yeah.
that we hold, the hardest part is actually the planning and preparation, the logistics and all that.
Yeah.
And I usually get out of shape by the time we're on the expedition.
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, yeah.
And everyone wants to do cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to put the work in. They just want to show up, reap the glory, and then go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is where I can tell you this because in the 10 years I've been training for this in my life of like climbing and alpinism, getting to this point, it's been always like I focus. I have like my board at home, like you need to lock it in, and focus on it. That compound interest, you can't be like, I want to just jump there. Fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the days where, like, I'm sore. Fall in love with the days you have to go to recovery. Fall in love with the days you have to eat, like, celery. Fall in love with the days, like, you're like, I'm drinking beet juice for the 13th time. Because I guarantee you, when you get to that top of that mountain with your friends and family and you're safe and you come home and talk about it, or you take off on the biggest wave, all of that compound interest will give you the biggest reward. And I'm so happy I didn't jump to be like, oh, I'm going to go to Nazaré and go surf, I didn't want to do that. I surfed it on a very small day once. When it was like very tiny on my shortboard, and it was so fast. But I stood there for the rest of those 3 years just studying that wave and looking at people go out there. And it was the biggest crazy thing to me when I met Joao Macedo and Garrett McNamara before I left for the season. And they were pretty stoked that I stuck with it. And I think for me, like, as people you look up to, being like, they see you out there, they see you trying, and like, am I surfing the size of their waves yet? No. But do they see me like putting in the work every day to get there? Yes. And they're like, you didn't just come out here with a bunch of money, buy a jet ski, try to buy your way into this. You took your time with the locals in the community and really fostered and nurtured that and came back every season and made friends and family here. And that is way bigger than any wave I would ever surf. So,
Yeah. That's that is huge. I'm happy for you.
Thanks, man.
So, when we got into podcasting, somebody gave me some coaching. He's like, hey, once you've moved on, don't ever come back. And I said, screw that. I'm going to do it my way. So first off, how did you get, so you're like the version of North Shore, the kid from Arizona that ends up in Hawaii and then beats, was it Lance Burkhart, AKA
Johnny Tsunami.
Yeah. So how the hell did a kid from Detroit, inner city, get into surfing and mountaineering?
My grandparents moved to Hawaii, and I just wanted to go meditate. And I didn't know a lot.
How old?
I was in my teenage years, super teenagers, because it was right before college, a little bit before that. And because we moved around, like being in the military, you have multiple houses, multiple stations. And when we got there, I honestly remember just being on Mama Bold and being like, this place is cool. I'm going to go learn how to like take my board out. So I taught myself how to swim first. So I would just go. We had a pool, and I would just swim, hold my breath, which no one in our family swam.
And so my niece swims now because she's inspired by me surfing, which is great. I love you, little one. But, like, she definitely loves it. And so I taught myself how to swim, like, and I was not underwater because that's where I thought was, like, you can do that. That's not, as you know, that's not sustainable.
Yes.
So I taught myself to swim, and from there, I worked jobs and at a golf course, bought my first surfboard. And I was very on Mount Stupid still, hanging out there, building my cabin. I went up to the North Shore and tried to, like, surf at sunsets, which I didn't think it was a crazy wave, which I had no clue at the time. And if anyone knows, don't do that. You should definitely try to don't go that route, really, because, people are like, well, there's Andrew, that little black guy out there surfing anyway. But, it really taught me, humbled me, and my grandmother was, like, nervous and scared something was going to happen. I was like, no, and I was like, no.
It's North Shore.
Exactly. I was like, my promise to her and my grandparents, like, I plan on burying you before you bury me, so don't worry about that stuff. Like, I'm going to put myself in these, how can I put it? Seek challenge, not danger. I was seeking that challenge. And so I got out there and got destroyed in the washing machine a lot of times. Surfed Alamana Bowls, and I just kept sticking with it, while doing track and field, which track was taking a lot more of that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then hiking, and to me, which I thought was climbing, like Diamond Head and such, that was just not climbing, that was trekking, which I didn't know the difference. I would just go up there like, hey, I'm going to go meditate and hang out and just, like, be in peace. That was the first time that I was like, there's no external noise that I'm really locked in on. Like, I'm not afraid of anything. Like, I'm not in the sense of, like, I'm ignorant. It's like I feel at peace. And so from there, I just kept doing it. Over the course of my life, I just kept climbing volcanoes around the world. So I'd climb up, meditate, and go surf in the same day. So I would seek out islands and just go do that. So, I can go surf, I can go freediving, all in the same time. And I thought that was climbing to me. It wasn't until, like, the last 4 years of now that I learned that these high altitude trekking and stuff, that's not climbing. I got into the technical climbing, and I was like, now I love it. So to answer your question, it just came from just being curious and inquisitive about life, and just, like, if you want to do something, sit down, understand it, read it. Definitely was inspired by a lot of surfers in Hawaii, and still am. Like, you have the Ho family, Sunny Garcia. You have KK, who has always been sending it. She's, like, when I think of big wave surfers, I think of her. I think of the Rothman family. You got Makua, you got Koa. Like, those are great surfers to me.
Dynasties in their own right that people know within, like, more traditional professional sports. But yeah,
those are the people when I was on the North Shore and I watched people surf as a kid, like, growing up. I was like, these are what you want to, like, this is your bar. It wasn't until I went to other places that I learned that not everything is big wave surfing like that. And so, like, California, I was like, oh, these are not the same size. It didn't click back into that same fire until I was in Portugal recently, where I was just like, Portugal in the winter is exactly what I love. It is very dark, gritty, big, double overhead sometimes, and you gotta own it. There's no lifeguards coming to get you here. Like, you have to know your stuff and know the waves. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
I mean, but my exposure to big wave surfing was Mavericks.
Oh,
and of course,
really?
You're not paddling out.
Wow,
We go to Santa Cruz. We go to Santa Cruz to surf.
Yeah.
But we would go watch.
Yeah.
And it's one of the. I mean, that's just.
Yeah. I think I think someone that I really idolize, I call her Big Ocean Sister, Bianca Bellatini. Sorry, B. She owns that spot as one of the best female big wave surfers, and I've never been to that spot yet. I think it's one that I would love to go. It is a backside for me, so I think when it comes to those type of waves on their backside, that's going to take a lot more consistency versus Nazare, which is, again, you can't tow into. Well, you could tow into Mavericks, but you wouldn't want to do that. You got to own those paddles. So this season, coming up, my 4th season back at Nazare, will be me paddling into it and me getting into that style of it. And Daniel will be pushing me going backside more on bigger waves, so I can get more into, like, the Jawses, the Mavericks. But again, I'm seeing, I need another 1 season, 2 seasons out there before I really show up at those places in full confidence.
Man, I love, because right now we're in a debate. So some guys want to row Drake's Passage, which is South America to Antarctica, and only one professional oceanic rowing crew has done it. And the guy who led it is a guy named, I'm going to butcher it, Fien. You see this guy, he's a freaking Viking. He's like 6'3", leads he doesn't have a family because he says he's so focused on the sport, only eats fish because that's what he can only produce from the ocean if he's on a long row.
I like that.
Like, the guy is disciplined. And so we have 6 special operations guys who want to do this. And I think it was this weekend we came to the realization that jumping right into this is not the right call.
No.
Don't confuse your enthusiasm with your capability.
Love that. I like that.
Well, that was taught to us
that.
in special operations. And I remember it was a SEAL Master Chief where we had briefed 3 young officers, all full of piss and vinegar, brief a potential concept of operation for real world op, and everyone gives their input, and then the quiet old Master Chief, which is the most senior ranking enlisted guy who usually has the most experience in the room, just says, "Hey boys," and he's got an Arkansas accent, which I'm not going to replicate, but "Hey boys, just make sure you're not confusing your enthusiasm with your capability."
Yeah.
And then walked out of the room, and we were pissed, like, screw that guy.
Yeah.
And then as we step back, we're like,
You might have something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he's got like 10 combat deployments on the 3 of us combined, and he was right. He was right.
Were you guys pissed because you could see that you were stronger in numbers than an individual, or was that why?
I think because we had put so much time into the plan,
Yeah.
and when you spend that much time on the plan, you become so emotionally tied to it that if somebody proposes a change, there's most people will have an allergic reaction to it.
Yep.
And that's what we had. No, still, he probably beat the shit out of all 3 of us.
I was writing
combined.
that. I wrote that down. It was a good quote. I think that's sometimes, like, I'm optimistic, but I like to be realistic too. And I learned from that point you're taking right now is if I would have just walked up to Nazare with a board on a small day, I probably would have died. I'm going to say I would have died 100%. Like, we just had a death there, unfortunately. And I think when you look at that, even in alpinism and such, I've been training at the same place in the Chamonix in the Alps for the past 3 years. Same guides. And everyone asked me how to do it. I was like, I set a budget for myself, how many times I would train with guides, who I would train with consistently, what peaks I would train with them on, what routes, and over time I would increase incrementally the difficulty of those routes to challenge me. And then I would move away into a one-to-one apprenticeship with the guide, so then I have to be on their intense level of climbing. And then at that point, I would go and repeat that route by myself after doing it X amount of times. And that is my thought, because if you just walk into it, you're playing, Mother Nature knows no chill. If she wants to take you out, she'll take you out, and she'll just go about her day.
Especially the ocean.
Exactly. She's not going to be like, okay, I lost one, let me go pull this one back. She will do what she's meant to do, which is go through the cycle of life. So if you're going into something that it requires that, like, the level of training has to be beyond just the myopic objective level. It has to be on the consistency of, like, the trajectory of your entire team and your life level. Like, cool, you make it through Jake's Passage. Now, how are you going to get... But what happens if, again, you hit a storm or a system comes in out of nowhere? Because you could have this small window.
Statistically, 25 to 40-foot waves.
Exactly. And it always changes. So for me, I always think of, like, how can I get the most reps in with the most consistent conditions that also let me have the most irregular, like, time in there to me to adjust and be on my toes. So, yeah.
People will grab onto these old mantras, and, well, you've known this. We've talked about this. Fortune favors the bold. I'm like, okay. I actually disagree with you.
Yeah.
From my experiences in watching the most lethal warriors in the world and what made them successful is fortune actually favors the prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boldness comes from preparedness.
Yes. Yeah.
If you just think walking into something untrained with very little situational awareness is bold, I actually call that recklessness.
Yeah.
And you're going to not only get yourself hurt, worse, you're going to get others hurt.
Yeah, I would say that is why I train the way I do. And I think that is, so when people look at, online or stuff, they're like, why do you go to a gym and why do you have the same framework you have from, like, the collegiate year setup? I'm like, I practice for a very long time. It's not because I practice, I am insecure about those things. Some things are I need to really go through people and get, like, feedback. So that confidence is taken off. Back to our premise. You want someone to be accountable and consistent and transparent, and be able to move through and be able to, like, get other people home if they can't. We recently just had that happen on a climb where things went very sour very quick. And this is on a route that I've done numerous of times. And I had to be like, okay, we had a snow little ledge bridge collapsed. And my friend and I were on the same rope, and that person went falling 10 feet down. It was a very long, and like I'm now on that rope and I just got pulled. I'm like, why is this? I'm like, this person's screaming. Like, are they screaming because it's hard? And you see them go falling. If I didn't do that route 10 times before that day and have that confidence with that, my guides, to go up there with that team, we both would have perished. I wouldn't be sitting here. That again goes back into like, prepare yourself for those situations, what to do, how to handle it, how to get everyone home, and how to be like, let's sit down and discuss. Those moments, I think, when people, especially in climbing, we're so engulfed in this ego kind of like, I need to be, seen and at the top. Again, I love the Mount Stupid joke because that is a lot. There's a lot of people up there sometimes. And
some people never choose to come off.
Exactly.
No matter how much experience they get under their belt.
Exactly. And I think when you play with these big uncertainties within nature, that's not something you want to just leave for chance and want to rush into. You really want to be methodical and intentional. So I'll go back to the Nazare one really quick. When I was getting destroyed the first session, I was like, I don't even know if I'm good for this. Like I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't barely even get up and pull up because my body wasn't used to that kind of style of like the jet ski's gonna roll, you gotta fight it. And people are like, oh, it's like wakeboarding. No, it's not like wakeboarding, dude. It's totally different. That's not, I don't know what that is. But you gotta pull it up, and then you have to make sure your knees are in the right position because you're sucking up so much water if it's choppy. And then you gotta let go of this rope while another big giant wave behind you is building. And it's not like you're paddling and going in. It's like and then you have to get back on it, and you're losing a lot of strength. I took every mental note, wrote it down in my journal, sat there, came back out 48 hours later, and sent it on my first big wave. Because I had and I talked to my team, being like, what is going on here? What's wrong with my body? After that session, went back to Sports Academy, sat down, we go through a debriefing after every, time I'm out. Sat down with the team, be like, I need to work on these muscles, I need to work this muscle. This is what my cognitive was saying. This is the data that I'm showing. I need to keep the heart rate like that. I was like, let's push it for the next few days while I'm here. So when I go back out, we're going to have a successful. That alone helped have that consistent back-to-back 20 sessions. So back to your point, it's like, you could rush out there, be bold, you'll get punched in the face, probably walk home with your tail between your legs. But that's where you take those findings, go back and prepare conditionally and intentionally, and go send it.
I love, this is just so important for people to hear. And I love the fact that when you seek out people that are the best in the world, and then you learn from them.
I do.
Bottom line.
I do. I honestly, it's been that way since everything in my life, I think, even in business, even in my life, I do for my normal working in cybersecurity. Like, I've been doing project and portfolio management for a decade, a third of my life. My mentor is Jess Gilman. I love you, Jess, because she is she's the CEO of Kraft Group Analytics, who, as you know, that is Kraft Group of the Patriots. Jess was the one that saw me in grad school and was like, hey, I'm going to give you this position for one season with the Patriots. You're going to come work under e-commerce. And Jess was so good. And then that entire team gave me one season to prove myself. And the amount of knowledge I learned from Jess and that team is the equivalent of 2 years of an MBA to me. And I still use all that today. And people ask me, like, how did you learn business so quickly? I was like, to your point, those are the people. So now even my mentor, like Lisa Lick, she's CMO for former CEO of Warner Brothers, taught me good marketing strategy while I was at Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Boom, boom, boom. Taught me how to use all of that. How did I understand how to create good products? My good mentor that is the former, worked at BCG. Now as SVP of product development and overseeing that at Live Nation Ticketmaster. We have dinner together. He works on how to build a team. That is why everyone sees it now, be like, how are you moving at this? I was like, instead of having two tracks of my life, one is working in normal technology and then being this athlete, I put them together. And that is where, now to your point, I seek out people that are and I want to preface this context, this when I say this, is if you want to be a good lifeguard, go listen and talk to great lifeguards so you know what to do. If you want to be good at business, go talk to people that really at McKinsey, the McKinsey way. Get 5 minutes with them. You will learn so much. Big wave surfing, rock climbing, and I see in medicine, kinesiology, all of that, because that is where you can build those big relationships and do it in a very reciprocating way, not just taking every time I go out, people ask, to your point, how do you know business? I'm like, Jess, from that tree. I'm from that coaching tree. I know exactly. I remember one time when I was signing with, I think I was going to go work for Lego at the time. Jess, I walk into the office, and I haven't seen Jess in a while. And she goes, what are your equity options? And I was like, I didn't think about that. And she's just like, boom, 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 boom. She goes, Andrew, these are the things we always discuss. And I'm like, oh, she's right. And like, she's like, okay, cool, I got a meeting. I was like, okay. Those are the things you really go back to. So always seeking those people out that really, again, are very tough but enlightening to you. You're always going to have residuals, and it's going to precipitate into your life, and you're going to grow from that. But you have to be open and receptive to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I usually look for.
We are all a product of our environments as much as we're a product of the mentors and coaches in our lives.
Yep.
And often I do find that a lot of the mentorship happens at the peer level as well. Mm-hmm. You surround yourself with peers that are all going for the same challenge.
Yeah.
You just watch them and be like, bro, and when it comes to, let's say, leadership or excellence, plagiarism is 100% allowed.
Yes.
And good friends would be like, if I look at them and say, hey, bro, I love the way you just describe that concept of leadership. I'm taking that. And they're like,
do it.
Amen.
I mean, that's what Aristotle, most of the Greek philosophers did. If you look at everyone from Confucius, everyone down to what you see now, every poetry to Shakespeare, most of those individuals are, successors from their predecessors. And they took that and they developed it into the time they're in now. I'll give you one. Dominic Berry is my sport climbing coach. And he's, most people seen him on HBO The Climb. He is by far one of the best rock climbers in California. And he has taught me everything on how to stay alive. When I go ice climbing and stuff, people are like, how do you know how to move your hips and feet? Dom is in my head saying, secure the feet every time that I feel insecure about where I'm sitting. Like even today, he's like, if I secure the feet, I'm going to reach. So you have to surround yourself with people that you're going, again, there's a good quote, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And that is basically saying in my heart, if my heart was to break and it's shattered, I see fragments of all those people looking back through that reflection. So that's what I think about. It's business has this, climbing has this, serving has this. And I think if you show up as a person looking for that and you're honesty and committed to it, people have a lot more respect for you and open that door a little bit wider for you versus you're like, I'm coming to take it from you and I'm coming through. And I'm like, I look at all my friends and, Dom is a great sport climber and stuff, but he's like, but Andrew, you're an alpinist. That's a difference. He's like, you're not trying to be what I am. I'm like, of course not, but I'm trying to learn how to live and not die like you can clip climb me. So it's the same thing. So
that works both ways as I've seen it. Yeah. Yes, iron sharpens iron is one man sharpens another. Yeah. There's a quote, and I know you've seen it, that's credited to Denzel Washington. If you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th. If you surround yourself with 5 winners, you'll be the 6th. If you surround yourself with 5 idiots, you'll be the 6th.
Yeah.
And to his last point, one, always seeks groups where you feel like you just are below the bar. I love it.
Yeah.
When I say, hey, I got to go serve in the tier 1, I had to earn my way in there. I had to get past the tryouts. But it was the very first operation I was on where I watched them. And I looked at at the SEAL Master Chief who was in charge, what we call the troop chief. And he saw my face afterwards and he's like, what's up? I'm like, bro, I've never seen a military unit move like that.
Yeah.
Like not even close, different realm. And he said a really cocky comment that I won't repeat, but he was a cocky guy, but cockiness earned. But a lot of people surround themselves with people where they're not going to be pushed. Where this sense of victimhood comes into play.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into that because you're also getting positive affirmation for, hey, you failed, it's not your fault. And you've just got to be very careful and you've got to assess the groups. And I've even fallen into this in my late 30s. When I was on my last tour, going through a little bit of survivor's guilt, no longer part of the SEALs, still in the Navy, doing my last tour, I started drinking heavily and started hanging out with a group that just goes to the bars Thursday night through Sunday night. And they were good people. But after about 2 years, I just sort of had to I did the Irish goodbye and left. And now I see them and they're like, hey, we totally understand why.
Yeah. And I think I have to use the bathroom right quick.
Yeah. Go.
Really
I think somebody's in there, but we'll stop. Perfect.
This is going so great. I was like, I have so much water in here.
At least you're hydrated.
Yeah, I'm super hydrated. This is great. I feel like we're super great. Super great. Where's it at?
Go around the corner, so out the door, and pull a U, and go right down the alley between that whiteboard. Oh, sorry. I like him, man.
Oh yeah. A lot.
Fucking badass. Yeah. You do good, man?
Yeah, man. Could not complain.
We'll figure out PBR here. Kevin Jones?
Yeah, she said she was down. She was asking me if, like, is it like if Jordan's going?
She was going.
Okay.
Is that like the selling point?
Yeah. she was like, if you're gonna be working the whole time, I don't want to be.
No, I think we're going to be done. I think midday on Friday, and then it's go attend the fucking PBR and watch it.
Yeah.
Like as if it was we're fans. I just want to see if we can get behind the scenes and see the bulls and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely down. You're thinking Thursday evening or something?
Yeah. I got shit to do.
Yeah.
I go fucking jizz in the cup and I think you want to know that. Figure out if I can have kids.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to pay for what you call it in Trail. That's like $20,000, $30,000. Oh, dude. My God, do you guys have loan options?
Man. Yo, I don't know what answer you're looking for. Good or bad?
No, it's she would leave me if I didn't give her kids. It was part of the agreement. I knew that. I didn't think it was gonna be an issue, but yeah, we're getting rid of Jason. I'm gonna release Jason today. I showed you. Plus it's $1,400 that we can put towards that second video offer.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
Good. I'm gonna use the little boy's room. You good?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
No, this is a take pick. You should say that.
Yeah, I'll take some more. I'll send them to you.
Thanks, man. It's really fun.
Yeah, man. Glad you came out here for it.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy as much as I am.
Oh, absolutely.
I am like sitting there like, this is so much fun. No, it definitely, what a crazy day. I was like, wow, you're in Texas, and then you have to go to Dallas,
Yeah,
then, then back home, right after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Stay the night
No, I'm gonna head to see my mom up in Dallas.
here? Yeah.
Then I'm gonna sing with her, and then I have the sports academy.
Sing with her?
I'm gonna stay with her, yeah.
Oh, stay with her.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with her up there, and then because I saw her like back in February, and then after that I will go ahead and head back to LA for one night, and then we head to Vegas, and then we have to get ready to drive from Vegas to Utah to do some rock climbing. Yeah, and then I have like another panel on Strava panel on Tuesday next week. Yeah, I only get like 2 weeks, and then maybe if the swell hits, I'll go down to Mexico do some big wave surfing down there.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah.
You know, it's ironic that you're here today. I'm actually going to take a belay class
What?
this evening.
I can belay you, dude.
You taking the belay class?
Yeah, with Taryn.
Oh, is Taryn leaving Austin?
She's still working through it.
She's that girl is.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
love
do
her.
a belay class.
She was like the 13th woman in the history of the Navy to be a rescue swimmer.
What?
She's badass.
Sounds like it.
She's just not really finding her place yet. Is how I feel.
Yeah, she's flight attending.
Yeah.
Still kind of just living in multiple cities at the same time, kind of lifestyle. But
Dude,
She's cool as hell though.
if you're belaying, man, you know what? Just always. You have a gree-gree?
I'm level 0.
Well, if you need any help, let me know. I can tell you, gree-gree will save a lot of time, especially when it comes to belaying. Yeah, dude, I can give you so many tips. Because if you could, yeah, just hit me up, and I'll give you so many tips on it.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, what harness to get and stuff, because that plays a big part in it. Back to, sorry.
Okay. Where do we leave off?
We left it up to 2 years. After 2 years, you kind of, you're with that group of people that were giving you that overconfidence, like, hey, stay with us for drinking and stuff. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to up myself and leave.
Yeah. It was. I needed it
Yeah.
for that period of time, but the drinking was absolutely unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I know you are 13 years sober. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Now, when you say 13 years sober, just completely
Yeah.
won't touch it.
Don't touch it. I can be around it. There's a great stuff right there. I could, go out and hang out with people, which I usually do, but don't touch it at all. And that's it. I just drink mocktails a lot. That's it. A lot of mocktails.
What are mocktails?
Non-alcoholic cocktails.
Okay.
So
Not as in N-O.
Yeah,
Okay.
just trust me, because sometimes you're out at like a bar or a speakeasy or someone just chilling out. People do look at you and be like, "What's that? It's Shirley Temple." And I'm like, "Not today." But no, I don't drink any of it, and I have a lot of wine. And next time I come to see you, I'll bring some wine for you.
So you love Portugal?
I do love Portugal. I do love France. I just collect it for people when they invite me to their house. That I just give it to them because I don't know what it tastes like.
Yeah.
So that's my way of doing it.
So somebody hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah.
And Sarraille is actually a Basque name. Pyrenees Mountains. And there is, and I don't know how it's in Portugal, but there is a Sarraille winery in Portugal. I'm like, hey, if I ever go to Portugal, visit you. Yeah, that's great. Let's transition to the Between Worlds project, because I've heard you talk about the lottery ticket, and that is actually a great analogy.
Thanks.
But you do cool shit. Bottom line, I mean, you're big wave surfing, which takes a unique breed of individual.
Thanks.
And I think for a lot of people, maybe they don't fully understand the power of the ocean.
Yeah.
And when you've been in, let's see, I was turning the Horn of Africa in a decent sized ship, but it was probably 20 to 25 foot waves.
Yeah.
Or seas. My God. Like I was they had me on IVs. It was, I was just like, as long as the IV is close to the exit of the cabin, I'm good. And then the climbing, man. First off, what's the best mountain? Like, what's the one that stands out in your mind?
I would say Ama de Blum. It's in the Himalayas. When I saw that, so I was recently,
which is technical,
very technical.
Which is one of the technicals. Yeah.
Yeah, I was recently there with good friend, mentor, sister, call her Melissa Reed. Arnott, love you, sis. I know you're over there right now with Tyler and the family, so I hope you guys are all safe. They were nice enough to invite me out. She's 6-time summiter of Everest. She's done a lot of cool things with her life. You talk about someone that understands grit and will push you to be the best version of yourself mentally and physically. It's that woman. Also, she ran from Everest Base Camp back down to Namche. No, I think she trekked up and then ran back. That's not an easy run, by the way.
And how long does the run take?
It usually takes an average person about probably maybe if they're stopping, probably a day. It took her less than that. I think it was maybe 8
That's
hours.
Insane.
Yeah, she's a cool person. She's really, really tough. So I was there with her. We did Everest Base Camp trek with her for a few weeks, and then I did Lobuche, 20,000 meter peak there. The Himalayas are the PhD of mountaineering and climbing. I thought when I got there, I had I should have known better because I came from Australia from a shoot straight there. It destroys you. That mountain, the Himalayas destroys you outright. And so that's just Lobuche at 20,000. Because what people forget about those mountains is that when a mountain is closer to the equator, it's actually further up. That the lack of oxygen you have is way more intense. That's why Cotopaxi in Ecuador are way more intense. And Himalaya is right there if you look at it. And so that was cool. But when I saw Ama de Blum, my friend, that mountain I didn't even look at Everest anymore. I was like, okay, that's Everest. But I was taking so many pictures of Ama de Blum. It's so beautiful. It's gorgeous. I just want to climb that mountain. And so my plan was to be in the Himalayas, climb a mountain every season in October, and volunteer with the Jupiter Fund, which is Melissa's nonprofit she raises for any. And anyone listening to this, if you do go to the Himalayas, look up this nonprofit, because there's many of the plethora. But back to Between Worlds Project, when I work with nonprofits and help give them funding and work with their founders, it's really to see what do you need? Is it monetary? Is it material? I'm not coming here to write a check and just smile and take a selfie with you. That just doesn't work for me. The Jupiter Fund actually gives back to those Sherpas that are killed, their families. So when a Sherpa dies in an avalanche, or in a mountaineering related activity, the Jupiter Fund steps in to make sure that individual family that is depending on the Sherpas for financial reasons are taken care of. And $100 to $1,000 goes a long way. So I got to see that firsthand. That was a highlight for me on that entire trip. So I have a lot of brothers and family there now that are Nepalians, because seeing them and what they go through, and I love them dearly for that. So to answer your question, yeah, Alma de Blanc, my friend, is the one. But Jupiter Fund, that is an amazing organization that looks after, because they don't make a lot. The Sherpas don't make a lot, and the families don't have a lot to live on. And so when they do perish, those individuals are left asking, what do I do now? And so she helps make sure that those families are taken care of, give education, open up stores. So she's a very good person heart. Very tough, but lovable. So, yes.
So I've got a picture of Ahmed Blanc from base camp at like 3 a.m. in the morning on my iPhone. I did the long exposure. It came out beautifully, but we jumped right there, jumped into base camp at Ahmed Blanc.
Jumped into it.
So we used the helicopter, would use the katabatic wind off the face of the mountain. So when we would fly right across the face of Ahmed Blanc, you'd see climbers climbing up.
Yeah.
And we just had to do corkscrews using the katabatic winds until we got to about 22,000 feet.
Ridiculous.
And then jumped out right over base camp and landed in base camp. It was gorgeous.
That is
Loved
crazy.
It. Yeah.
That is crazy.
But I love the Jupiter Fund. I had not heard of that. And learning about the Sherpa, one, that's not a job title. That is a sect of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they are physiologically just freaks.
They're advanced.
Having lived at those altitudes with their blood oxygen. But people, it is, basically all these people that climb Everest, it's the Sherpas that are doing the majority of the work. They're laying the ropes. And people are like, oh, Sir Edmund Hillary. I'm like, and I'm blanking. I'm actually embarrassed. I think it was Tezeng. God, it'll come to me. Who actually was with him? And got no credit whatsoever.
Exactly, and I think that is where I love how you have someone. I would say if you can talk to Melissa and Tyler, they're very beautiful people. I
would love that.
They're really cool people. Reach out to them, and I think she's over there right now doing the work because they just had an accident, unfortunately, and they lost a few people. But if it wasn't for her, this goes back to mentorship. Like, it wasn't for her. Like, when I stepped in to be, the Between Worlds Project is over a decade old. So I've been doing it. So I'll break down the preference and the infrastructure for this. I didn't want to just create something that is another nonprofit for a nonprofit. And so when someone says you're a founder or CEO, I actually, depending on Crystal and I go back and forth, for cosmetic purposes, I'll go, okay, cool. But in my mind, I'm just a developer. Mm-hmm. It is a clubhouse of people from around the world that are dealing with human rights issues, environmental issues, to so many different things in their backyards that need support from not just me coming there and absorbing their resources and leaving and just giving a high five. It's more of a community per se. I'm very selective about the nonprofits I work with and I donate to, and I actually, because they're family to me, and I still check them. Even when the pandemic happened, I checked in on one in our ones down in the Peru, or ones in Africa. So there's different places that I work with in that. And so when I worked in tech, and it goes back to the genesis of this entire, you bringing me on here, is I came from nothing, but I don't want anyone to feel like they are nothing. And when I step into a place, I don't want anyone to feel that I'm just taking away from them. So I always go into with principles and core values, because my core values are basically, if I don't have anything left, at least I'm standing on my core values that keep me going every day. And those core values is, and I will just repeat this, is always make a place or person better than when you found them. If not, leave them be. Always give back more than you're taking away from an individual or in the resources that are there in a community. Make sure you're building towards the right purpose and asking what they want to be built for, and then understanding to let them be who they want to be. And so when I developed it, it was just like, I work in corporate America. I've worked for some really great corporations, like we talked about, like the Patriots, Lego, Ticketmaster, and such. And I would go on a vacation, go climb and meditate and surf, and I was like, I'm not feeling fulfilled doing this in my sense. I could be doing more. So I would just take the money that I earned from my normal corporate job and help give back to those individuals in those communities. And not every nonprofit is on that website, because some of them can't be, because there's issues within those communities that if you do announce them, they will become targets and they will not be safe. And so for me, it's like, find those people that are really going to be, that I still talk to in WhatsApp, still hang out with. And so I donate from my normal corporate job every cent that I can. Like, I've, had Christmases in Tanzania with kids, having them. I've had, celebrations and watching kids get school supplies down in Dominican Republic, work with women's rights and, up in the Middle East. And so all of this for me has always been giving back. And everyone's like, well, do you have a big board? And I go, no, we're not there yet. And they go, why don't you want something that giant? I was like, it's not about the size, it's about the impact of it. And I was like, there's 10 good nonprofits here. And over time, I wanted to get to where, let's say your friends and family are will, and everyone wants to go, and like, hey, I want to go to Tanzania. And I'm like, here's a nonprofit, here's a guide, here's the people. Just say you know this in the Between Worlds Project, and you'll be welcome with open arms. It's a place where it's like, we're not just letting people go there to just go there. We're like, you're getting a full-on immersive experience of that. And that is what it is. It's like, and I called the Between Worlds Project because you and I never got asked what we wanted to be walking out this into this life. It's like you were just, before this existed, it was dark, and then you're just out, and you're holding someone's arms. And then they're giving you a name, social security, you know, such documents. You're not asked if you want to be white, black, Asian, what race, what gender, anything. That is just your lottery ticket of life. Like mine is just, you're in Detroit, Michigan, your mom is Tabitha King. Here you go. Dad is somewhere. And I'm like, cool. This is great. I now have to navigate this world between what society wants me to be and what I want to be. And so I'm between these two worlds. And this came in a lot because a lot of my friends, I come from a biracial family. Like my family is Hispanic, Canadian, and African American. If you look at my mom, you can say like, my mom is very mixed, looking like Drake, I call her, all the time. But a lot of my family's Canadian. A lot of my family's Hispanic. If I were to dislike one race or one, you know, gender completely, I would be robbing myself of this life completely. And so you're always navigating between these worlds and how you're doing that. And so that's why I call it the Between Worlds Project. And so for me, over time, it's the building out this, you know, media platform where these nonprofits can go like, Andrew, I have something I want to speak about. Cool, come to the website, come to the YouTube page, use the podcast and do that for that. And it's this journey is for me, it's like not just climbing these 14 peaks that everyone, it's like, that's just a car. It's basically like, if you think of a Kia, it's just a Kia. It's like, who are the people in the car? Who are we driving to? What am I doing? I'm not just going to zoom up to all these peaks and be like, I climbed it, cool, sweet, tag me, I'm great. It's more about the communities I'm passing through within that. And so giving back to them. And so for 10 years, a lot of people still forget this sometimes, besides people that have been with it. Working my corporate job, training, working, I actually did Postmates for a while to actually when I got really, yeah, exactly. I love your face there. I had to do Postmates while working at Live Nation to make enough money to give to the nonprofit that I promised down in Peru while making enough money for my Aconcagua expedition, which I had really nothing. And like I was like, I promised them I'll make that. I was like, I don't have enough capital to take care of the expenses for my family, like, you know, putting away from like niece and nephew college fund for doing what I have to do here, and then the expedition. I was like, what are you gonna do? I was like, you made a promise, go fill it. So I was like, all right, I did Postmates. I remember just having my bow tie coming in, like driving around, and people like, Andrew, I just had a meeting with you, and you're like delivering from like, I gotta do what I gotta do to do this. Over time, so this goes back to the compounding interest. I knew it wasn't gonna be like this forever, but I knew at this point it's pushing me to see like, do you really want this? 3 years later, now I have partnerships with, you know, Black Diamond, Backcountry, Ready Wise Food. We have, you know, Scarpa shoes. I sit in my room and I wish I could. I'm not gonna tear up too much on this, but I remember I wrote this 5-6 years ago. Like, I will hope one day it won't be as hard and I can get gear. Because when I did Kilimanjaro, I legit had just a down puffy, my Live Nation sweater, some boots I got from Walmart, and some cargo pants and just some mittens. And I was cold up there. And I've done that mountain twice now, and other big mountains and volcanoes around the world, and I don't, with better gear. And I'm like, is this what it feels like now to have great gear? So that project is showing you what it's like for an individual to come from Detroit that has been building those connections and roads to get there. And I don't look at surfing and climbing as these big achievements. They're just tools to build roads to each other, to connect to you, to connect to other people. So when you can go back, like, you can start here, but here's the map and shows you which way you want to go. And I'm going to get out of my car when I'm done and give you the keys and you can do it. So that's the Between Worlds Project in a long-winded answer.
That is beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
I think to your point, you talked about journey earlier. And it's what about you learn yourself, but what you learned about yourself on the way, that the destination I've found is never as rewarding as I thought. It's actually, I'm like, okay, we did it. It's like, what's the next horizon?
Yeah.
But the impact you have along the way. And this is trying to get, again, people to understand this. Like, hey, you may, and I was going to use the word just, you may just be a father. No,
Yeah.
actually, you are a father, and that is awesome in itself. Or
Yeah.
you are a mother.
Yeah.
And I was going to use the word even if it's only
Yeah.
your child. So if you're a mother and you impact your child and that child goes on to do amazing things or impact 5 other people, it's again, compounding interest.
Compounding interest.
Go for the quality over quantity.
Yes.
And sometimes the quantity will come if you focus on it enough. But your core values, and the 4 of them are absolutely beautiful, and make a place or person better than yourself. Have you ever read the book Legacy?
No.
About okay, you got to pick this up.
Okay,
In New
okay.
Zealand All Blacks,
Yeah.
which are like the best. It's
Yeah.
just the culture they've created. They are the best rugby team in the world. But they talk about these. I think it's 15 values. The first is basically it's instilling confidence, and they say leave the place better than you found it. Leave the culture better than you found it. And it's not uncommon to see one of the best rugby players in the world, a New Zealand All Blacks team member, sweeping the locker room. And they've just baked it into the culture.
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. You're never above that. And the fact that you were driving Postmates, having a executive job in the tech world, that shows people everything they need to know about. Give more than you take, essentially.
Yeah, because a lot of people, and I appreciate, I'm going to look this book up too, because a lot of times people are like, well, why did you have to do that? I actually got dumped by someone when I was doing it, because they're like, well, you should be making X. I'm like, but I distribute my wealth throughout different parts of it. And I think it's not, if I were to go ahead and go about this, like creating more materials, I'm not going to feel fulfilled that way. And I was like, I know my niece and nephews will be okay. I know this nonprofit's going to be okay. I know I'm able to take care of my grandparents and my mom if they need to. And I know, like, taking my mom, like I said, to Paris and sitting there and watching her, I'm like, that came from putting through that hard work. I could have gave up right then and there. It's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, go to my normal job, and like, I'm not going to take care of that nonprofit that doesn't know me anything. I don't know me. That was never my philosophy. I was like, I made a promise and I stick to it. It goes back to what we said, where that discipline comes into it. You make a promise, you say something, you better show up in your best, honest suit and give it 100%. Your 100% may not be the same as your 100%, mine, but I'm going to give it that one right then and there. And I just knew that this was something that even if no one found me, I would still do it. And I think with social media now, and people look at it, I'm like, if no one knew who I was, I would still be doing this, because I've done it for my entire, like, a third of my life now. And so it's not really about, I'm grateful that people are hearing it, but like I tell people, when I'm done with these peaks and surfing, these waves, I look forward to seeing the next person take this car and like do crazier cool stuff than me. I look so much forward to that. I'm like, if I'm not in their corner, I'm in the front row of that arena being like, keep going. Because I know that this isn't forever. And I know I may not see that tree and the seeds I'm planting. I may not be able to see it, like, be the shade for someone needs. I know that. But I do know that I'm going to contribute to society the best way I can with my mind and body while I still can. So for me, this project is more than just about just me, Andrew Alexander King. It has so many people concatenated to it. And I would say this, before anything happened 3 to 4 years ago, I didn't talk about my personal life. I wouldn't do it. I was like, it's about the nonprofits. Let's not make it about me. It wasn't until my friends were like, Andrew, I think you should talk about your life. I was like, it needs something. And I was like, does anyone really want to hear this? I'm like, I talked to my therapist about this. I'm pretty good. And I'm not going to lie. I think when we lost my great grandmother, that's when I stepped up into it. Because I knew at that point when I lost her, I was just like, you leaders, and I forgot who says this, don't hide. You don't hide. You step into it. You own all of it. And you have to own all of it. And that's where I had to grow up very quick. I went from being, like, again, 32 to feeling like I was 52 very quick, because I had to step up for, like, my mom, my brothers, my sister, my grandparents, everyone at that point. And it wasn't like I felt this weight on me. It was more of like, this is what everyone was always pacing towards. And now you have to step up into it. And so to me, it feels normal. It feels like I'm not hiding. I'm doing it. There you go. If you want to DM me, there you go. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
You're not boastful.
No.
Nope. What you just described, I call the legacy of leadership. You talked about, you accomplished this peak in, let's say, record time. Is the whole point if somebody comes behind you and actually does it faster.
Yeah.
And being their biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
it was no different than, and this is where we talked about ego and how ego creates danger, especially in these professions.
Correct.
That's when people get hurt.
Yeah.
But most people want to leave an organization and see that organization flail.
Yeah.
Because then they can walk away and say, see how important I was.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it without me. When the right leaders, and I look at the SEAL teams, I hope, and I was in a role, or I tried to put a lot of time into the junior officers below me to become better than I was.
Yeah.
And I think, do I know the SEAls are better than our generation that are serving now? 100%.
That's awesome. See that?
Have they had the same global war on terror type scenario? No. But when their challenge comes, they're going to rise to that occasion.
Right. And that's what you really want to see. I think at the end of the day, it's like, how can I put it in words? When you think about your life, right? On a tombstone, the most important part is not the day that you are on this world and you're off. It's the hash. What's happening between that hash? Like from the day you're born to the day that you transition out of this world, it's that hash that has the big, it's funny or interesting, that's the smallest part of the tombstone sometimes. It's like, this person lived here to here and has a quote. And I'm like, it's that hash, that little line right there that has the most significant part to it. Like, what's in that? What is drawn in that? How hard is it chiseled in? And I think about that a lot. I'm like, that's what I think about in the grand scheme of life, like contributing to society and like navigating all through these conversations. And people are like, well, I want you to stand for this. I'm like, I just want humanity to be the best version of itself. And I want to contribute to that. And that's going to mean like having hard discussions, sitting down with people, being like, okay, I want to hear your side of it, and being like open-minded through things and being like, this is what I'm seeing objectively. This is what I'm seeing personally. Can you do better? And giving you that opportunity. And I think it comes down to the choice, giving people the choice to choose. Like, again, and I love how we have the bell right here. I look at, and I know what that bell is, I always think of it in the sense of coming from a military family, like, and everyone in my family was like, Andrew, you done JRTC, you're going to go into RTC. And I was like, yes, but I know this path is better. And like, my grandfather was super devastated. But he looks at it now, he's like, you made the right call. And I was like, yeah, but you gave me the choice. You gave me the choice to choose. You didn't have that choice. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you really distilled in me to give me that choice. And that is what I want to give. And that, if that's my hash at the end of it, like, I just gave people a choice by showing them what's possible. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. And not everyone will bite, but that's okay. That is a very personal decision. That's funny because my father was pissed when I joined the Marine Corps.
Really?
He served in the Army during Vietnam. He didn't have to go to Vietnam. Yeah. But the Army was it was a drafty military back then. Leadership was a little bit different. But after he saw me in the end product of what came out of Marine Corps boot camp, he has never been a bigger fan. I think he still brings donuts to the local. So you look at this bell, and what Andrew's talking about is we have a bell that looks very similar to the bell at Navy SEAL training.
Yes.
It's huge. But this one, and usually a student, when they drop on request, will ring that bell.
Yeah.
Which to some people may seem demoralizing. But let me tell you what I've seen the instructors do is they actually help those young men by simply asking a few questions like, hey, well, first off, they do pat them on the back.
Yes.
Hey, smile, because at least you had the guts to try. You stepped into the arena where very few people will.
Yes, I love that. So,
and they ask the second question.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself?
Oh, I love this.
Like, reflect. What did you learn? And
that.
A lot of them go on to do great things in life.
Yes.
Some reset. And this is like insane. Like, I think if I had it just didn't work out in buds, I don't think I would have reset and come back.
Really?
But for some of them, there was a guy. So you're only supposed to have 3 tries in buds. So he came, didn't work out, came, didn't work out, came a third time, was actually in my buds class, and it didn't work out.
Okay.
Somehow, administratively, he beat the system, came back a 4th time. And John, if you're listening, I love you. Made it through.
Good for you.
And some people were like pissed. They're like, "Oh, well, he had 4." Like, bro, actually, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yes.
The guy came back a 4th time for punishment.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what we're looking for.
That is crazy.
Like, that's the guy who's never going to quit. But this bell is a good bell.
Yeah.
It says your rent is due, and rent is due every day.
I love that.
And its forms of payment are discipline, persistence, and hard work.
Yes, there is no such thing as free rent.
No, exactly. Yeah. Dude, Andrew, I can't thank you enough. This actually, we could host a podcast together for years. I do want to ask one question,
Sure, man. Sure, of
because we
course.
talked about Dwayne Fields, and I'm going to connect you with Dwayne Fields,
Sure.
our UK counterpart. So the barrier to entry in these sports is cost,
Yes.
and Dwayne is trying to bring inner city black youth from the UK into nature, and he said, and you've seen it for people that have never really been. Let's say, hey, we're going to hike this hill and it's going to take 3 hours.
Yeah.
But when they get to the top and they look at the view, their mouth just drops.
Yeah, they did it. It's like the bell. Yeah.
So, and I know that's of concern for you because in a lot of ways it changed your perspectives on life. How are you tackling that in ways?
First off, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this. It's been a very comfortable, amazing experience. So I would say anyone who's listening to this, if you ever have the opportunity, please come. This is really cool. Second, I would say when I became a partner, I don't call my sponsors or my brands sponsors. It's due transactionally. We're married. We're in a partnership for over this course of the decade for together. And so I would say, like, I'm in this. If I have to speak on this, here's my backup for this. This is how I'm going to use my platforms. Do you agree or does not agree? And not every partner's like that. And so the partners I have, which has been Black Diamond for 3, Backcountry, Scarpa, Sea to Summit, ReadyWise, each one of those partners in my contract has to donate to nonprofits. Each one of them. It's a percentage in my contract. They have to do it. And when I first did, they're like, who are you? You're not free soloing El Cap. You're not doing any of this stuff. You're not climbing. I'm like, you're just a guy that's having to learn. I'm like, if I'm paying for the training through my normal 9-to-5 job to play catch up to where I've been not able to access this consistently, to now even be on your radar with your athletes that are pros, and I'm going to be in that pipeline, do this for me. Because I know that I've been gifted with the ability to have the balance in that. I've had to sacrifice things such as, different qualities of life that my friends have, but I'm not resentful for. But I don't want people to have to do that if they don't want to. And what I mean by that is every nonprofit, we just had one in the Alps, which is dealing with climate change, where you're seeing the massif it's just cracking. Like, again, last summer, I spent about 3 months there just waiting to climb Mount Blanc, Eiger, and the Matterhorn. Never came into conditions. It was no permafrost, really. There was things blowing off that were just scary. And so do you want to take an individual that has never been in the outdoors and show them that right off the bat, that, let's go climb this, might kill you right now because we have climate change issues. And so every brand or partner, I call it, has to donate a percentage, 10 to 20% of whatever I am, to that nonprofit. I'll do it sometimes, but I'm looking up to them, and I'll go through and itemize and say, are you doing this to this nonprofit? Are you doing this? Are you donating to this cause? Are you helping these, the nonprofits or the kids get outdoors? If you're not, then we're not really on the same page here. You're basically getting some more out of me than I'm out of you. And so that's one way. I really sit down and have these hard conversations. I am working with 2 partners right now, which is Scarpa, and another one to get an individual out to the Alps to climb with me and ski in the next year or 2. So I've been working there with 3 years with Chamonix and climbing and such. But now it's like, it goes back to our point. You've seen a lot of me already, and you will see more. But it's time to see the next characters within this universe step up and outdo me in this space, which there are many people that can. So those partners are helping me. I'll take care of the lodging, which is Airbnbs, which I call the adventure house, where people come down and like hang out. We climb some stuff together. And they'll meet the guides that have trained me, and they'll go climb with them. And then on 1 or 2 days, I'll come in with them, and we'll do something together with the guide, and we'll hang out together. So they're now getting to go to a place that is mythical to them and hang out and do that. The same with in Portugal. So the same thing is getting the next surfer that's ready to step into this, that is from a very different perspective and background, to now come down to Portugal Surf Factory, which Dylan and Eduardo, who makes my boards, let's get a custom board for you now. Now let's take you into at Aseta, let's get you set up on some of these big waves here, and let's slowly get you to consistently see, can you hang and come back for the big day there at Nazare. That's how I tackle that. And it's also just, athletes reach out to me sometimes online, and I look at their work, and they're like, hey, I can't afford to go to this conference that you're at. It's really expensive. And I say, here's some Venmo cash, go for it. And they're like,
wait, what? I'm like, I know what you've been doing. I've been monitoring what you've been doing. I'm seeing what you're doing. You're the real deal, and do your thing. You know, I get this funding in part from, you know, working with these brands and partners to, you know, produce performance per space, but my performance is only as good as the people that can outdo me later on if they have the space to do that. So.
Who are you?
I'm Andrew, man. We're friends now.
Andrew Alexander King. Well, so we usually end this show by asking 2 questions, but you've already hit it. You get your core values again. Make the place or person better than you found it. Give more than you extract. The third was build a sense of purpose in the people around you and what you're doing. And then the fourth was let people be people.
Yeah, just let them be. Just let them be.
As Willie Nelson said, let people be people. It's their greatest strength.
Good man.
You're in Texas, right? Willie Nelson's big here. And we also ask about people's legacy, but you've hit all those. I'd love to end this, and I'll end with the typical ending, but in your Black Diamond video, and we're gonna post this.
Sure.
You talked about aligning your sense of purpose through your mind, your heart, and how your soul will follow, and especially with your work.
Yeah.
So if you could just explain that for us.
Sure.
And then I will close out. In fact, you know what? Guys, listen to this part. I'm going to say it before you go. Thank you for joining us. This is the Men's Journal Everyday Warrior podcast. Please go to your Apple, Spotify platforms. Leave a review. Those reviews matter to us because that's how we adjust. That's how we evolve. And you have your perspectives and your experiences. You're entitled to them, and we want to hear them. Hopefully it's 5 stars. Wink, wink.
5 stars.
But Andrew, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Sure.
We're going to post this. We're going to do an article because people need to see this. And there's a difference between wanting to hear it and needing to hear it. And I think a lot of people need to hear this, especially who are going through maybe a rough spot, who feel that, I'm 40 and I can't do anything new. No, you can.
I'm 36. And you know what? Take every day you come. And it's never, I would say to people, it's never too late to start, like your friend John there. You know what? He kept going. And I think you'll know when to stop and you'll know when to get up and keep going. Just listen to yourself. So again, when the mind, body, and soul are all aligned, you're walking in so much truth and you're able to be in flow. And that's what it is. If your mind is not, if your mind's out of it, then your heart's out of it. If your soul's out of it, then it's not. It's all aligning all 3 of those things up. And that's what you've just been hearing is a kid that was from Detroit that grew into a man that aligned all those up by just being accountable and reflecting. And that's all it is now. So if I see you in the street and you're a nice person, I'll give you a hug and high five. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys.